Reason is a light that guides us. Revelation is a light that created us. But what happens when these two lights meet? What if reason and religion are not enemies, but allies? In a world filled with speculation, philosophy, and theological extremes, a man rose who demanded both clarity and faith, thought and devotion. His name was Ibn Taymiyyah. He was uncomfortable, unyielding, often imprisoned, often misunderstood. Yet behind his name lies more than a defender of Islam. In this video, we discover Ibn Taymiyyah not as a dogmatist, but as a thinker, a man who built a bridge between reason and revelation. Ibn Taymiyyah was born in 1263 in Haran, into a world in flames. The Mongols had destroyed Baghdad. The Islamic world was fractured, politically, spiritually, morally. At a young age, his family fled to Damascus. There, amid houses of learning, heated debates, and the echo of a lost golden age, a mind took shape that would soon challenge everything. He was a prodigy. He mastered Quran, Hadith, fiqh, theology, and logic. But for Ibn Taymiyyah, knowledge was not mere content. It was obligation. He wrote, taught, and challenged. He opposed blind imitation, excessive veneration of saints, speculative theology. He sought to return to the source, the Quran, the Sunnah, and clear reason. But the path was not easy. His teachings met resistance from philosophers, mystics, and rulers. He was arrested, exiled, imprisoned. Yet he continued writing, in prison cells, in isolation, and in unwavering clarity. To Ibn Taymiyyah, solitude was no punishment. It was a test, and a testament to the steadfastness of thought. Ibn Taymiyyah lived in a time where thought followed two main roads: blind obedience to tradition, or speculative philosophy divorced from belief. But he chose a third path. Not either, or, but both, in truth united. To him, reason was a gift, but not a god. He said, reason is the tool by which we recognize revelation, not its judge, but its servant. To deny reason is to walk in darkness, but to ignore revelation is to forget the light that created us. He argued, if authentic reason and authentic revelation appear to contradict, the fault lies in our understanding, for truth never contradicts itself. He stood against philosophers who buried God's truth in rigid systems, against theologians who distorted God's attributes to fit Greek categories. To him, God is not the product of logic, but the source of logic itself. At the same time, he opposed those who silenced reason altogether, who claimed that faith meant blind obedience, not understanding. Ibn Taymiyyah countered, faith is insight, not imitation. Human beings were created with reason, to examine, to reflect, to recognize. In his major work, Dar Ta'arud al-Aql wa al-Naql, the refutation of the conflict between reason and revelation, he laid out a vision. Revelation is perfect. Reason is limited, but essential. Only their harmony leads to true knowledge. He warned against two extremes: those who claim only what is provable is true, and those who say only what is handed down is valid, with no questions asked. For Ibn Taymiyyah, both positions were dangerous. He saw the middle way, a faith that uses the mind, a reason that does not replace God, but seeks Him. He wrote, "The light of reason and the light of revelation shine together. Whoever extinguishes one walks in shadow." And that line remains as the legacy of a man who thought to believe and believed to think. Ibn Taymiyyah lived in the 13th century, yet his thought carries a light that shines brighter than ever today. We live in a time where the front lines are drawn again, between science and faith, between emotion and logic, between tradition and modernity. But what can we learn from a scholar who built bridges where others built walls? Firstly, reason is a tool, not a judge over truth. Ibn Taymiyyah reminded us, reason is a light, but only when it does not set itself above the source of all light. In a world dominated by opinions and noise, he taught, reason must be guided, not by emotion or power, but by revelation. Reason without revelation is directionless. Revelation without reason is lifeless. Today, we need the courage to think deeply again, not in opposition to faith, but in its light. Secondly, faith demands understanding, not blind imitation. Faith, to Ibn Taymiyyah, was never a mechanical act. He said, those who simply repeat what they hear, without reflection, betray the depth of faith. Knowledge begins with questions, and faith becomes stronger, not weaker, when it is examined. And more than that, those who know carry responsibility. Knowledge is not a decoration, it is service. A scholar who remains silent when he should speak has failed. This principle is often lost today. We know, but we do not act. Ibn Taymiyyah reminds us, knowledge without courage is escape. Truth without commitment is hollow. Thirdly, the middle path is strength. Extremism is weakness. Whether in theology, politics, or everyday life, he warned against oversimplifiers, the loud, the divisive. But truth often lives in balance, between obedience and understanding, between freedom and discipline, between silence and speech. For him, the middle path was not a compromise, but a conscious choice, a path of clarity, patience, moral depth. In a time of polarization and shallow slogans, this principle is more relevant than ever. Balance is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. These three principles, reason as a tool, faith as conscious understanding, and balance as moral strength, are more than ancient insights. They are signposts for a time that is searching for orientation, for people who want to believe without closing off, and want to think without getting lost. Ibn Taymiyyah shows us, truth is not a choice between opposites. It lives where reason and revelation meet, not in the noise of extremes, but in the stillness of balance. Ibn Taymiyyah was a thinker in a storm, surrounded by power struggles, ideological extremes, and theological confusion. He held fast to a simple principle: truth is clear, when sought with an open heart and a vigilant mind. He was no philosopher in an ivory tower, no preacher of convenience. He was a man who fought with words for the purity of thought and the clarity of faith. Today, in an age of information overload, intellectual confusion, and spiritual disorientation, we need his voice again, not as a dogma, but as an invitation. What does the harmony of reason and faith mean to you? Share it in the comments. And if you seek wisdom, thought, and spiritual insight, subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, the path to renewal does not begin in argument, but in understanding.